Let's get rolling on a Monday. Glasses in session. We go to the Glasser guest line, check in with Sean Pendergast. Give Sean a follow on X at Sean T. Pendergast, host of Payne and Pendergast on Sports Radio 610 in Houston. Weekdays 6 to 10 a.m. Central. Also does pre and post game for the Houston Texans. Sean, great having you back on the show, man. Before we talk about tonight's game, just want your overall takeaways from that Week 1 game against L.A. We expected it to be a low-scoring game, two good defenses, maybe not 14-9, but your overall takeaways from that Week 1 game against the Rams.
I think, well, you start on the offensive side of the ball with the Texans, PJ, and we all knew it was going to be a work in progress with this team. A lot of new on that side of the ball. New offensive coordinator, new offensive line coach, 4 new offensive linemen. C.J. Stroud having control at the line of scrimmage, which he didn't have under Bobby Slowick. So C.J. is orchestrating things now. That's something new. Nick Chubb instead of Joe Mixon in the backfield. So a lot of new going on with this team on the offensive side of the ball. So I don't think we expected it to look perfect. I did expect them to score a touchdown in the game, though. I wasn't expecting just 3 field goals in the game. They've got to protect C.J. Stroud better. They've got to have a cleaner operation tonight. They had 11 penalties in the game. Not all of them on the offensive side of the ball, but plenty of them pre-snap on the offensive side of the ball. We thought we traded that away to Washington when Laramie Tunsil got sent up there. We thought we got rid of the false starts. Evidently not. And I think you're going to see a lot more of Nick Chubb tonight. A lot more Nick Chubb than we saw. And he got 13 carries in that game, but DeMeco Ryans made no bones about it. We're going to see more Nick Chubb tonight. And I think you're going to see Nico Collins targeted a lot more than 5 times in this game tonight.
That's where I was going to go, Sean. I was going to start with Chubb because that was big talking point in the offseason, right? The injury to Mixon. You bring in Chubb, who at this point in his career probably wasn't what he was in Cleveland. He's had some injuries. But then with this matchup specifically, Bijan had 100 receiving yards against Tampa, so you wondered maybe if Houston tonight goes a little bit more with Woody Marks or they go a little bit more with the receiving back. But you do think it's going to be a heavy dose of Chubb again tonight.
I think it's going to be a heavy dose of Chubb. DeMeco Ryans all but said it on his coach's show this week that in looking back at that Los Angeles, the loss to the Rams, that he probably should have leaned on Nick Chubb more than he did, and he was not going to make that same mistake twice. Chubb, you bringing up Woody Marks is completely appropriate because that's what they drafted him for out of USC, was to catch the ball out of the backfield. One of the best pass-catching running backs in this past draft. So I think we'll see a dose of Woody Marks. I don't think it's just going to be exclusively Nick Chubb, but I don't think they're going to be burning carries with Dameon Pierce. I don't think they're going to be having Woody Marks come in and carry the ball a lot, maybe third down situations. And I don't think we're going to see Daria Gumbawale leaned on in crucial situations like he was against the Rams. Of course, had that crucial fumble that essentially handed the game to the Rams at the end there. So, yeah, Nick Caley's made no bones about it, the new offensive coordinator. He wants to run the ball between the tackles, and Nick Chubb is that guy.
And then the receiving room, you mentioned you expect a heavy dose of Nico Collins tonight, Sean. Right now on BetMGM, his receiving prop is 76.5, which makes sense. You think he's going to have a good game, and they're going to target him often. After that, though, Dalton Schultz, 35.5, Jaden Higgins, 23.5. So down the board, there's some good value on some of these other receivers. Outside of Nico, if you would target a pass catcher in tonight's game, who would be the guy that you would look at?
I would look at Schultz. I would definitely look at Schultz. One of the focus points for C.J. Stroud throughout the preseason, and you saw a little of it in that Rams game, has been getting the ball out quickly, getting it out fast, taking the easy money that's there. Sometimes he did that in that Rams game to the detriment of Nico Collins. Nico didn't get 5 targets because he wasn't open. He was open a bunch of times, but that pass rush was getting on C.J. quick, and he was doing a pretty good job of getting rid of the ball quickly. Cade Stover, the Texans tight end too, who actually played more snaps in that Rams game than Dalton Schultz did. He's out with a broken foot now for at least 4 weeks because they put him on IR. They called up Harrison Bryant from the practice squad. The tight end is going to be involved in this game. Nick Caley comes from a tight end background. He was a tight end coach before becoming an OC. So of the guys you named, I like Dalton Schultz. I think there's a trust factor there with Schultz as well that might not quite be there yet with the rookies, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll. That they're just the precision's not quite there with those rookies yet, being exactly where CJ wants them to be. He's had 2 years and change now with Dalton Schultz, and that trust factor has always been there with him.
Yeah, totally makes sense. We're talking with Sean Pendergast here on Send It In. Houston's and the Bucs tonight, Monday Night Football, from Houston. Sean, defensively, we knew going into the season Houston was going to have one of the better defenses in the NFL. They were really good in week 1 against the Rams. Is there an area of concern, though, on that side of the ball? I know Stingley was injured, came back into the game. He should be out there tonight. Any area of concern for the defense for you?
We were a little concerned after that game about what it might look like for Stingley this week. He was not the same after he suffered that hip injury in the game against the Rams. He came back in, but Devontae Adams had some chain movers against Stingley in that game. Practiced all week, looked good at practice all week. I would say if there's an area of concern, I would say 2 things, PJ. I would say one would be Cade Otton, the tight end for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Texans last year and this year too, the backup tight end for the Rams scored a touchdown in that game. Davis, I think his last name is. Covering tight ends has been an issue for this team with Azeez Al-Shaair, Henry To'oTo'o, Christian Harris when he's in there. They're not a great cover group of linebackers, so that's number one. I think number 2 is Jalen Petrie, who is a big playmaker for the Texans. They use as sort of he's lined up as a slot corner, but he blitzes a lot. He's really more like a hybrid safety linebacker type. You saw on that 3rd and 8 that the Rams closed out the game. They got Puka Nacua singled up in the slot on Jalen Petrie. Jalen Petrie, for all the positives that he brings in making plays and big hits, is terrible in coverage. And that's something that good offensive coordinators have been able to do with the Texans, is find that Achilles heel, find Jalen Petrie in coverage, disguise a play, maybe looks like a run play, but it's a pass play, and you get Petrie playing overly aggressive. There aren't many weaknesses on that defense, as you point out. I mean, their pass rush is elite. Their corner play is elite. They've got very good safety play with Bullock and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. But I would say covering linebackers and Jalen Petrie's over-anxiousness and inability to cover are things that the Bucs should be looking for tonight in crucial situations.
Some great insight there from Sean. We'll get to who you like to win the game in a moment, but just looking at the total, 42.5 tonight, Sean, again, low-scoring game. Last week against the Rams, would you expect another low-scoring game? I remember when these two teams played a couple of years ago, it was like a 39-36, right? It was like a thriller between these two. I don't know if we'll see that tonight, but do you think it's more of a shootout or a lower-scoring game?
I think that total sounds about right, to be honest with you. I think that total is spot on. I probably wouldn't touch the total. I was all in on the under with the Rams game and the Texans. Between the two defensive lines alone going against those two offensive lines in that game, you just knew that as long as each team protected the football and didn't give up a lot of short fields, that was going to be a whole lot of punting back and forth, which it wound up being. I think this one sounds about right. I think the final score is going to be 24-20. I think the Texans are going to get in the end zone. It's 24-20 Texans. I think they're going to win and cover, but it's not. I'm not playing it. I think that the odds makers are right around where I feel this game should be. That game in 2023 was incredible. That was a top 5 NRG Stadium regular season game. It was amazing. And that was CJ Stroud's coming out party.
Yes.
That was week 9 of his rookie year. The Texans were 46 seconds away from going 3-5 on the season, and CJ was perfection and I get chills talking about it, and then I get anxiety and agita and PTSD because Tank Dell was the one on the end of that touchdown throw from C.J. Stroud. Tank Dell, 2 huge catches in that game, and we know Tank is probably out for this season with that knee injury. So I don't think it's going to look like that shootout. I think 24-20 is what I have. I think the total and the side are very, very – I think they're right in the neighborhood on this one.
When I saw this was the matchup we were getting, Sean, I remembered that game, and I was like, that was a great, couple years ago. I remember that game coming right down.
Back and forth.
Awesome.
That was the game. Now, if you could get a prop back in that game for Dare Ogunbowale kicking a field goal in that game, I don't know if you remember that, but Kaimi Fairbairn left at halftime with a hamstring injury, and it was 30-30, and Kaimi Fairbairn gave the Texans the lead with a 30-yard field goal in that game. Dare Ogunbowale, backup running back and special teamer, kicked a field goal in that game. That was one of the wildest games in the history of the stadium. So maybe we get some fireworks like that. The national television audience tonight would love that, I'm sure.
Definitely would. Can't wait. Should be a fun one. Texans and Bucs. Great having Sean Pendergast on. Give him a follow on X at Sean T. Pendergast. And check out Payne and Pendergast on Sports Radio 610 in Houston's weekdays, 6 to 10 a.m. Central Time. Sean, enjoy the game tonight, my friend. Always good seeing you, and hope to talk again soon.
Anytime, PJ. Always enjoy talking to you. Enjoy the game tonight.
Yeah, appreciate it. Great stuff there from Sean. All right, guys, let's continue talking Texans and Bucs. We'll also dive into the Chargers and Raiders game later tonight as well. Of course, you guys who are listening to the show out there, if you have any thoughts on the game tonight, any prop bets that you're looking at, let us know. This is how we make bets. This is how we decide what we want to do. Great insight there from Sean talking about this game. As he told you guys, the Texans do struggle against tight ends, so maybe look at some Cade Otton props tonight. Also, D'Amico Ryans came out and said they're going to use Nick Chubb, so maybe look at his carries tonight, those kind of things. I might have to add that to my card. Some prop bets that I had, I'm staying away from the side and the total in this game. I agree with Sean that I think the total is about right at 42.5. That seems fair to me. Texans 2.5-point favorites in the game. I always get nervous when it feels like just about everybody that I'm seeing likes the Texans in this game. That always makes me nervous. And really the big handicap that I'm seeing from a lot of people is that the Bucs were the luckiest team in week one. Of all the teams that won in week one that shouldn't, the Bucs were number one. They were number one in all the luck rankings and all those sorts of things. But again, it does scare me with the Texans, like Sean was bringing up. There's a lot of new on that offense, right? A lot of new pieces on the O-line, new receivers, new running back, new offensive coordinator. C.J. Stroud now has all this control at the line of scrimmage. So even though I'm a big fan of Stroud and I'm a big fan of their head coach, D'Amico Ryans, everybody, it feels like, is on the Texans tonight, and yet all week this line has stayed at 2.5. So to me, it feels like a good game to just bet live. I would love it if Tampa goes up early in this game. We can get Texans at plus money to win the game, but I'm staying away side and total. Instead, I'm attacking the prop market in the game. I'm looking at Baker Mayfield over 17.5 rushing yards. Tampa's got some injuries up front on their offensive line, especially with Tristan Wirfs still not available. And with the Texans having one of the best pass rushes in the league and one of the best pass rushers in Will Anderson, I mean, there should be some lanes that open up for Baker Mayfield. It's a primetime game, longer week. I think he's willing to endure some more hits. So I think Baker could look to run tonight. I like his over 17.5 rushing yards. How about Emeka Egbuka of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Obviously got all this hype in the offseason from a lot of people in training camp, and then goes out in week one and has 2 touchdowns. Looks awesome. Well, now it feels like everybody that was benching Egbuka in week one now is starting him in their fantasy league. So we all know how this tend to goes, right? Rookie, you wait and see what he does week one, pops off. Now everybody's rushing to plug him into their lineups, betting him in week two. I'm going to go a little contrarian against a very good defense. I'll take his under 51.5 receiving yards. And then finally, this feels like a field goal kicker type of game to me, right? I'd look at Fairbairn of the Texans over 1.5 field goals. You do have to lay the juice at minus 140, but it definitely feels like, again, you got a great defensive team in Houston. They usually do kick a bunch of field goals. I think Fairbairn over 1.5 at minus 140 could be a good look for tonight's game. Moist Cupcakes, I got Nick Chubb over 13.5 carries at plus 104 already. After listening to Sean, Moist Cupcakes thinks that's a great bet. I think I'll be on that as well. Again, he had 13 last week, far and away their leading rusher. And listening to Sean and what D'Amico Ryans was saying this week, should be no reason why he doesn't get a bulk of the carries again. So I think that is a good look. As for Chargers and Raiders tonight, LA a 3.5-point favorite on the road. Total in the game is 46.5. You guys have listened to the show. You know I am big on the Raiders this season. Over win total. Think they're going to make the playoffs. And what a great opportunity for them tonight. How big is this game tonight for both of these teams? Chiefs are 0-2. Broncos lost yesterday. Winner of this game is going to be in first place in the division. The Chargers should be favored, but in a divisional game on the road, should they be giving us the 3.5 in this game? And guys, a big part of why I like the Raiders this season is because of how great Geno Smith has been in his career when he plays indoors. Obviously playing tonight in Vegas, he's going to be indoors. Should be a good environment for the Raiders tonight. And going up against the Chargers, normally whenever the Raiders are at home, whichever team they're playing against on the road always has a big road contingency there with their fans, because what a great road trip for the fans to go to Vegas and see their teams play. As we know, Chargers, not really much of a home field, not really that great of a contingency. So the Raiders, this should be one of the better home atmospheres that they do have all season. So I think that definitely plays a part and maybe some value for the Raiders tonight as well. I do like them plus the 3.5. I'll be hoping that they win the game, but I'm just going to take them on the spread. And then 2 props that I would look at both on the Chargers side. Amarion Hampton over 12.5 receiving yards against Vegas. That Chiefs-Chargers game in Brazil, the one thing that stood out to me about that game, one of the things that stood out to me was how much Hampton was out on the field in that game for the Chargers. He wasn't as effective running the ball as you would have liked, but man, he was out there a lot, and he's a really good receiver. 12.5 yards is not that many, and Justin Herbert looked really good. Greg Roman and the Chargers came out and threw the ball a lot more than we thought they would. Maybe they do that again tonight. So Hampton over 12.5 receiving yards, I like that. I also like Keenan Allen anytime touchdown at plus 200. That's a great price. And when the Chargers are in the red zone, when it's 2nd and goal at the 8, 3rd and goal at the 6, Herbert's looking for Keenan Allen. That's his guy, still an elite route runner. So plus 200 Keenan Allen anytime touchdown.